For most of human history, people worked about 15 to 20 hours a week. They made art, music, jewelry, raised children, told stories around the fire, and somehow they did all of it without a single job. So why does a life without work feel almost impossible to imagine today? Because somewhere along the way, we didn't just change how we live, we forgot another way of living ever existed. Here's a number that completely changes this story. 90,000. That's roughly how many hours the average person spends working over a lifetime, nearly 1/3 of your waking life. Now compare that to people who didn't even have jobs, no salaries, no managers, no deadlines, just another sunrise. And one simple question, what does today need? So what did they actually do? In the 1960, anthropologist Richard Lee decided to find out. Instead of guessing how ancient humans lived, he spent years living with the Juwasi people in Botswana, one of the last hunter-gatherer societies still living in a way remarkably similar to our distant ancestors. And he measured something no one had measured before, their time. The average adult spent about 17 hours a week getting food. That's it. Think about your own week. By Wednesday afternoon, their work was already finished. Everything after that belonged to them. Naturally, not everyone believed the results. Critics argued these weren't prehistoric humans. Life during the Stone Age had to be much harder. Fair enough. So researchers looked somewhere that couldn't exaggerate. Human skeletons. And that's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The same pattern appeared again and again. The Hadza in Tanzania, the Ashe in Paraguay, the Martu in Australia. Different continents, different cultures, the same result. Roughly 15 to 20 hours spent securing food each week. For comparison, many people today spend more time commuting to work than hunter-gatherers spent feeding an entire family. Then came the bones, and they told a story nobody expected. When archaeologists compared hunter-gatherer skeletons with those of the first farmers, everything seemed backwards. The farmers were shorter. Their teeth had decayed from grain-heavy diets. Their joints showed years of repetitive labor. Their bodies carried the marks of harder lives. Meanwhile, hunter-gatherers were often taller, stronger, healthier. The very moment we call the beginning of civilization, human health appears to have gotten worse. But there's one piece of evidence that's even harder to explain. If ancient humans spent every waking hour fighting to survive, then something archaeologists keep discovering shouldn't exist at all. Art, not rough sketches, not random scratches on stone, masterpieces, and they force us to rethink everything. In 1994, a group of explorers crawled into a cave in southern France, behind a rockfall sealed off for over 30,000 years. They found something extraordinary. Walls covered with horses, lions, rhinos, animals painted with movement, depth, and astonishing precision. Some artists even used the natural curves of the rock to make the animals appear alive in the flickering firelight. This wasn't decoration. This was imagination. Think about what that really means. Someone carried a small flame deep into total darkness, lay on cold stone, and spent hours creating something beautiful, not because they had to, because they wanted to. It's difficult to imagine doing that if every hour of your life was a desperate fight for survival. And Chauvet Cave wasn't unique. In South Africa, archaeologists discovered shell beads over 100,000 years old, each one carefully drilled by hand. The nearest coastline was roughly 20 kilometers away. Someone walked all that way, collected the shells, walked all the way back, then spent even more time turning them into jewelry, not food, not tools, beauty. Then came music. In Germany, researchers uncovered a flute carved from the wing bone of a vulture, around 40,000 years old, 5 perfectly spaced finger holes. Whoever made it understood far more than carving. They understood rhythm, pitch, sound. Long before cities, long before writing, people were already making music. None of these discoveries helped anyone hunt. None built shelters. None made food easier to find, yet they appear again and again. Across continents separated by thousands of miles, across tens of thousands of years. There's really only one conclusion. These people had something we rarely imagine they possessed: time, and they chose to spend part of it creating. So, what did an ordinary day actually look like? Forget everything you've seen in movies. No one woke up and immediately sprinted after a mammoth. Most mornings began quietly. The fire from the night before was still warm. Breakfast wasn't rushed. People talked, laughed, shared dreams, planned the day, because there was no clock waiting for them. If food was running low, a small group might head out to hunt or gather. If yesterday's hunt had gone well, there was no reason to leave camp at all. Instead, people repaired tools, wove baskets, prepared animal hides, practiced skills, not because a boss expected it, because doing something well mattered. When there was a hunt, it looked nothing like the movies. Humans weren't built to outrun deer. We were built to outlast them. Our ancestors followed animals for hours, sometimes all day, not because they were faster, but because humans cool themselves by sweating. Eventually, the animal overheated, collapsed, and the hunt was over. Hours later, everyone ate, and by early afternoon, the day's hardest work was already finished. Now imagine something almost impossible in the modern world: several hours left in the day, with absolutely nothing urgent to do. No meetings, no emails, no notifications, no countdown to tomorrow. People rested, children played, someone carved patterns into bone, someone repaired a spear, someone simply sat in the shade talking. Anthropologists estimate that some hunter-gatherer societies spent around 6 hours each day doing something we barely schedule anymore: just being together, because in their world, relationships were survival. Then the sun disappeared, and everything changed. Researchers who studied hunter-gatherer conversations noticed something fascinating. During the day, people talked about practical things: food, tools, tracking animals. But after dark, the conversations became stories, heroes, spirits, impossible creatures. The campfire wasn't just keeping people warm, it became humanity's first theater, its first classroom, its first library. For hundreds of thousands of years, that rhythm barely changed until one small idea quietly reshaped human history: a seed. Instead of following food, people began growing it. It sounded like the perfect solution, and at first, it was. More food meant more children meant larger villages, then towns, then cities. But there was a catch: fields couldn't be abandoned. Harvest couldn't wait. Animals had to be protected, food had to be stored. For the first time, people weren't following nature anymore. Nature was setting their schedule. Generation after generation, that schedule became something even bigger: work, taxes, kings, governments, money, factories, offices. Most of the modern world grew from a single decision made thousands of years ago, one that traded freedom for stability, and once that trade was made, there was no easy way back. Today, we live longer. We're safer, healthier, more comfortable than any generation before us. Almost no one would choose to give that up. But comfort isn't the same thing as freedom. Our ancestors didn't count the days until retirement. They didn't wait all week for the weekend. When the day's work was done, life simply continued. Maybe that's the strangest part of this story. Jobs aren't something humans evolved with. They're something humans invented, and like every invention, they solved problems while creating new ones. So maybe the real question isn't, what did people do before jobs existed? Maybe it's, what did we give up when they did?